Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of The Blackest Furnace with me, Robert.
With maybe
Man like Mo with a deep voice and that, obviously.
Good bro, your wife ain't here.
Bringing you man into the smoothness. Yeah? Smoothness. Yeah?
why is it funny when you say smooth? Anyways,
But yeah, apologies guys, I haven't seen us for 2 weeks. It's Peter's fault. Just
it
gonna
is
put that
my
out
fault.
there.
It is entirely my fault.
And it was such
This was
a sick conversation that
It
we had.
was,
Well,
you
by
know.
now they would have heard it, so
Well, so are you gonna put that one out before you put this one out?
of course I'm gonna put that one out before I put this one out.
Okay.
But he might not even put this one out. It might be in the bank.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there you
by the
go.
time you're hearing this, Peter is doing bad at his job, so
Mad.
let it be known.
I slacked this week. Apologies, guys.
You know? And just for that, Peter, you can be the hot seat this week.
He was just trying to earn a living.
Just trying to earn a living, just trying to feed my family, put food on
Yeah.
the table.
Yeah. In a G-string.
I don't think I'd make much money that way, to be fair. Don't think I'd get that many jobs. I won't get that much tips.
I think Peter could be a gigolo if he wanted to be.
Bro,
Nah, I doubt it.
I think Peter would intimidate people to give him tips.
Is that being a gigolo? Or is that being a gangster?
No, I definitely feel like there's like a market for big burly black men
Oh dear lord!
that
Come
Peter
on.
can tap into.
Hey, come on.
All right, yeah. Can we move on? Because
There's a market for that. Bro, YouTube is just in the madness. There's a
And
market.
then his website could be Rock Hard Peter.
Oh gosh. Okay. All right. Cool.
All right, cool.
Not the visual I wanted to start with, but cool.
It's okay though. It's okay. Right.
Peter's in the hot seat, yeah?
Do you want to go first, or can I go first?
You can go first.
Okay. Peter, what advice would you give to a Christian who was maybe having trouble, managing their time? And are there any biblical principles to back up any advice you would give?
Yeah. So I think I would challenge our view of time, our view of what time is in general, and whether or not we recognize that it is also a resource given to us by God, to be stewarded. We have limited time here. We're not promised tomorrow, but in the time that we are here, we are to. I think if we recognize that it is also a resource, it's also something we're stewarding. It's something that we're supposed to make the most of whilst our master is away. So I'd use the parable of the talents, for instance. It wasn't time per se, but whatever they had been given, time included, they had to make the most of it. They had to do something with that time such that when the master returns, they can say, this is what I did in the time that you were away. And I think if we recognize that time is also a resource given to us by God, within which we're to do what he calls us to do, then we treat it with that respect and with the urgency to do what we're supposed to do in that time. Now, I think framing time in that way then means, or then I think allows us to look at what we're actually doing when we say manage time. And I think it's evaluating where you want to invest your time. And again, I'm using all these terms because I think they highlight seeing time as a resource, and then you can look at any sort of number of methods to manage time. Productivity, sort of hacks and tricks and tips and all of those things. Making a to-do list or planning ahead or breaking down goals into sort of smart objectives, small, measurable, achievable, recorded something R, and then time based, realistic. Thank you. Realistic, time bound objectives, Basically, I think, yeah, it would be any of those things you could use to manage your time. I think what it would really come down to for me would be um, structuring things such that you are using the right amount of energy at the right time. And so if you've got like if you're trying to manage a number of tasks and there are some that don't require that much mental focus or energy, like I'm just, I don't know, ticking off emails or something like that. Doing that at the start of the day when maybe you're fresh and you have the most energy might not be the best use of time. You know, maybe you tackle something harder at that time and then go. But again, those fall under those productivity things. So there's a number of productivity strategies that you can look at. Find one that suits you. But I think I think the main thing is recognizing that time is a resource. You don't have unlimited time, and thus to steward it properly.
Follow-up question. How would you advise someone who wasn't sure how much time to dedicate to kingdom work?
When you say kingdom work, it's layered because for a Christian who's living their life for God, everything is kingdom work.
And for someone who's not living their life for God?
No, sorry, that's maybe a bad way of putting it. It's just what do you mean by kingdom work? You know, if
Like,
you're talking,
going out to evangelize, going out to do a preach, to a...
it's your circumstances, isn't it? I can't go out and evangelize 9 to 5 because I have a wife and I have a family, and Paul recognizes that a man with a family will have divided attentions as he is supposed to. So he needs to take care of his family. He needs to work. He needs to, put food on the table, as it were. And so I think it would really come down to their personal circumstances. The easiest option I can give is that you let the Spirit lead you in how you invest your time, and that will lead you in how much you do to sort of maybe the quote unquote kingdom work that you're doing. Let the Spirit lead you in that as well, because it so easily can become, well, I do charity work 6 days a week, therefore I'm a good person. Not necessarily. So I'd say let the Spirit lead you there as well, in how much time you apportion, but it will depend on your circumstances. Hence why the Spirit's the best person to guide.
Cool. I'm happy with that. Moses.
So my question is, what ways, how would you walk a father through introducing his child to the gospel?
This is funny.
You missed it, bro. I'm not going to explain it to you.
Oh no! Well, no, I was laughing for a different reason because I'm making notes.
I was laughing because of what happened this week. That's why I asked the question.
But did I tell you guys the story?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Yeah. So, context for the viewers, when picking up Zara from nursery, and Zara had been a bit naughty, so I was like, when we get home, she's going on the naughty step, so she knows there's punishment waiting for her. It amplifies the effect of the punishment because she's got an extended period of time thinking about the punishment before it happens.
This psychological torture.
Etc. But in doing that, I thought, oh, here might be an opportunity to teach her about the gospel. So we were talking because we tell each other stories, and she was actually telling the story of the gospel, and I decided to tell her that God made a solar system and everyone and people are naughty, so God had to put them on the naughty step. But then Jesus came and Jesus said he will sit on the naughty step for them, such that they don't have to sit on the naughty step and they can be free. And that made people happy, and they went to be with God, and that made God happy. And so we say thank you Jesus, and we say thank you God, and that's the gospel. And my 3-year-old was like, oh, that's nice. How kind of Jesus. I'm thinking she's got it. And I was like, okay, so can you tell me the story of the gospel? And she goes, yeah, Jesus was very naughty. But no. um, well, I think, yeah, with that context, my advice now would be to see where your kid is at. um, and eventually she got it and she explained it to Anita perfectly. So yeah, it's relative to what they understand, but I definitely would think, using things that they can relate to, using their language, and things that they understand definitely is useful. And Zara clearly, from since last time, understands naughty step is a punishment, and somehow Christ took punishment from people, such that people didn't have to undergo that punishment. So it's not apologetically, sound doctrine that she's going to use to win a debate, but it gives her context. It gives her an understanding that she can relate to. She's been on a naughty step before. She's experienced the joy of being released from the naughty step before. Even if she's not cognizant of those things happening, she's got a grasp of the gospel in those terms. And as she grows, that language will change, contextualizing it for her such that she understands, until she's at such an age at which we can talk about in detail what it means, and but effectively that principle is the same. We were due punishment. Christ took the punishment such that we no longer had to take it. And that's grace, and that's why we should be grateful. So I think it would be just meeting your kid where they are. It would be introducing them to it with anything that they can relate to. I think sometimes the problem is we put them, and I don't want to say this as if it's bad, but we put them in front of like Superbook, and it's great. Superbook is great. But Superbook doesn't do a good job of contextualizing it. Yes, the kids are there, and yes, they always try and make it relevant to something that the kids are going through. Superbook is a cartoon, for those that don't have kids. It's a cartoon aimed at kids, trying to teach them about the Bible. But that doesn't give them context of salvation and of justification, and of some of those maybe meatier theological topics that, let's be honest, some adults don't even have good understandings of.
Facts.
And so I would say meet them where they are with the truth of the gospel. And that might mean contextualizing it with language, with things that they can relate to, that they can understand. Believe it or not, I think the naughty step was a good way of doing that, because Zara definitely got an understanding of it, in as much as she got the wrong idea the first time round. But yeah, meeting them there, but then also not being formulaic about it. What works for Zara at 3 doesn't have to be the same thing I'm telling her when she's 8 or 10 or 15. Ideally by then we're having more in-depth conversations about these things. But at 3, I also think it's not as much a service to her to just put her in Sunday school, or just put her in front of Superbook, in front of any number of Bible adventure. There's loads of really good ones, and all of these are good. I don't want that to go without being said. All of these are incredible resources for kids, that introduces them to the concepts, introduces them to the language of Christianity. But I think definitely the truth, the gospel, the gospel itself, not just Bible stories, the gospel itself, speak that to the child in language that they can understand, and updates the language as their understanding becomes more capable, or their capacity to understand increases. So that's what I would suggest.
I like that.
I also, sorry, I want to throw in there, because I want to be annoying. Don't leave it to them to say, oh, they'll make up their mind. Like, you're supposed to train them up the way they should grow. Don't force it on them, but give them everything that they need. Equip them to be able to make the right decision when they need to make the right decision. Yeah, because I what's his name? Okay, this is not a Christian example, but Gabrielle Union's husband, Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade.
They're saying, oh, let your child lead you and then you follow them there. What? That doesn't make sense, And obviously he's saying that in a very specific context. But no, I will not don't let a child make decisions that they are not equipped to make. You, as a parent, equip them to then, make the most important decision, ideally favorably for them, but definitely don't just leave them to it and say, "Oh, we want them to discover for themselves." Because if you're not teaching them, someone else will, and that's how we learn. Someone else will come and teach them something else, and you would have failed in your role, I think, as a parent. So, yeah, that's me. Being controversial and all.
No.
I had a question for you. I don't want to leave till next week. Actually, I don't know what you're going to talk about, Robert, but I don't know.
Who's the question for?
Question now. For both of you.
Okay.
What's the question about?
Race.
No, go for it. That's not. I'm not talking about anything race related today.
Cool. So I want to ask you guys: is race a social construct?
Yes.
Oh snap! Okay, Robert, what do you think? Because more clearly
No, I don't think it is.
Defined. All right.
I was actually thinking about this today or yesterday. Actually,
Come on.
I think for Christians, it's not. If you're not a Christian, whatever, because whatever anyway.
Okay, so elaborate. Mo, why do you think race is a social construct?
I think race is a social construct because I think the delineation of ethnicity is real.
Okay.
There is like an Asian or Southern Asian or Eastern Asian, Middle Eastern, African, like based, and even within that, there are then sub tribes within the ethnicities and stuff. But race, as in you're black, you're brown, you're this, you're that, it is a social construct that was introduced for the purposes of division.
Okay.
So the social constructs as we know it now.
Division or categorization?
Division.
Are those the same?
Division.
Okay.
Because it's there was actually I don't know, I'm misquoting, but there's actually a document that dates exactly when race, as in black, white, and stuff, was used in a political document.
Okay.
And it was used specifically for division because they had tried different things to bring about division. Locale, religion, nothing worked. And then they were like, okay, black and white, we're going to use this. And then they had to almost create extra categories for the other ethnicities. So yeah, I see it as a social construct created primarily for division.
Very interesting. Robert, you said there was a distinction between whether or not you're Christian on this topic, so would you be able to elaborate?
So, well, before I get into that one, I think that race is not a social construct in the same way that gender is not a social construct.
Let's offend everyone.
And the reason I said that for Christians it's not a social construct is because I believe God has been very specific in the color He's made people and the variety of colors that He's made people. If we were to be all one race, then if God wanted just one race, we would be all the same color. Yeah, some people might be a bit darker than others because of the sun and stuff, but we would be whole one general color, I believe.
I don't.
This is very interesting.
No, why not?
Because we have almost every species on the planet has variations.
But that's down to mutations and not like
I mean, you can argue, if you want to go down the evolution route, you can argue that for humans as well, because apparently blacks were the first humans, and then they moved into Europe and blah blah blah, where there wasn't as much sun, and so they didn't need a melanated skin to protect them from it, and so they lost it over time, evolving to better suit the climate that they were in.
Yeah, but But we as humans are made in God's image, so I think that our mutation is
Yes.
different from animal mutations.
Okay, that's a good point. That is a good point. I do see an intentionality behind God creating different races, different as we see them now. But I don't think it was a case of division or even there's a difference between recognizing difference and allowing it to become a barrier, if that makes sense. Recognizing uniquenesses, recognizing that, oh, like Robert is taller than me or whatever, Peter's stronger than Robert, like recognizing differences. But then using that in a discriminatory way is evidence of the fall. And so in recognizing differences, within any two people, there are differences, not just skin color, not just race. There are differences and there are nuance within two people. But the emphasis on race is an emphasis that has been introduced. Again, I would link it to the fall, to the brokenness of humanity, as opposed to something that God divinely inspired. He may have divinely inspired variety within humanity, but the way in which we're viewing it now, I don't think is divinely inspired.
But I think just because we are viewing it in such a way, it doesn't mean that before we started viewing it that way, it wasn't that way.
Yes, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. And that's why I said I believe that God did make different tribes and tongues and races and nations. I do believe that. And even Genesis, Revelations is talking about every tribe and every tongue will like come down, and so that there is this unifying, not uniformity, unifying of different races and nations and tongues and tribes. But the emphasis that we have placed on it now, I believe that is a social construct. I don't believe the differences in race is a bad thing. I believe there's a purpose behind it, but the emphasis that we have on it now is a social construct.
So you're saying that race as a form of classification is a social construct, but
yeah,
people being of different quote unquote races, because that's the word we use, it's not.
Yeah.
Classify. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very
because if it will be a case of if biblically people have been referred to by their by the region or the country that they're from, for the most part. So, oh, this Ethiopian, oh, this Egyptian, oh, this. Moses was referred to as an Egyptian, the Ethiopian eunuch, like the Samaritan, the whatever. And so their nationality or whatever is what was referred to. Oh, no, that black guy over there. Like, we don't necessarily hear that in the Bible.
What about the lady in the Song of Songs? The dark-skinned woman.
She was describing her. She was, and I did think about that. But I think the way in which she described herself, and this is slightly controversial, but I almost feel like it gives weight to the Black Hebrew Israelites' whole narrative. Because she's talking about the locks of her lover's hair and blah blah blah. And Samson they cut off the locks of his hair and them things there. Now obviously white people can have locks as well. I mean, like it's just the hair texture and stuff. But I think it gives some credibility there. And I think it was more so just a description as opposed to a classification. Well, because it was like I have been in the sun, so my skin is darker. But it's not saying I'm black and he's white.
No.
I think,
I think it was more to do with the fact that she was out in the sun and that's why she's dark, but not that she's a darker race than the other Mandemons.
Okay. Interesting. So I'll toss that grenade in there. I was sitting on the fence.
You're almost like half an hour deep.
I know, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the topic. Actually, before we do, I just want to share a thought I was having as Peter was doing his story notes. Sorry. I was just thinking, there was a time when We weren't doing this over screens. We were all in Moses' living room recording
Facts.
these.
Indeed.
I still miss the Papa John situation, you know,
I want you to realize Mo's intentionality here. Not
bro,
missing us. You missed the
bro.
pizza that came
Yeah.
with
Hey,
us.
bro. Obviously, we're chopping it up, but the Papa John situation was a righteous one, man.
And, you know, podcasting was the only time I've known Moses not to be late because it was happening in his house.
In my own house, straight.
Oh
You're coming
god.
to me.
And you
I
know what?
swear,
I think
you used to be the one that was normally late though.
Mm.
I was coming all the way from Elephant and Castle.
You were, yeah, coming from far.
But Peter
So
was driving from where? Wellington.
No, he was coming from church, straight from church. And the church was in Croydon.
yeah. We used to do it Sundays. Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't coming straight from church. I'd come after church, go to my mother-in-law's, and then come from there.
And his
Or take.
mother-in-law was literally just down the road from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys can come to Kent.
Well, you could come down here where the two
We've
of us
got a
are.
whole
Hopefully.
studio. We've got a whole studio. I could set it all up. We'd be fine.
Bring the studio to Moses' house. How about that?
It'd be
I'll
hard.
bring it,
It'd
we
be
should bring
hard.
it to your house, son.
Hard to take off the bricks and stuff.
Yeah, come to my house. Beach house free for an hour or two. Thank me for it.
Well, no, for me it'll be an hour or two plus the 2 hours in and out that I'll be driving.
Oh, so we should drive for 2 hours.
He said, yeah.
Nah.
All right, cool. Let's get into the episode today. Census has come out.
Oh, census.
Yeah, the census came out, and for the first time ever, less than half of the English and Welsh population is Christian. So I think
on.
it's down from. So it was down from 59.3%. Now it's 46.2%.
Wow.
Yeah, so compared to the census 10 years ago, people who have said that they have no religion has increased up to 37.2%, up a quarter. And I think out of all the religions, it was just Christianity that went down. All the other major religions went up.
Oh.
So Judaism and Islam went up.
Yeah, everything went up. And then there was something I saw. I thought was funny. Where is it? Of those who chose to write in their answer under any other religion, the largest group identified as pagan, with a tenfold rise from 2011 in those identifying themselves
Sounds
as
fun.
shaman. I know, right? In London is the most religiously diverse region of England, with just 25.3% of people reporting their religion as Christianity. So yeah, if I just throw that in there, Christianity is losing its sway, census-wise anyway. And I thought we could discuss a little bit about why we think that's happening. Is Christianity dying, or are people just taking off the cloak of Christianity when they have never actually been Christians?
Say that again, please.
So, is the number of Christians dropping because people are stopping being Christians for real, or are people just taking off the cloak of Christianity and saying, "Oh, I'm a Christian," even if they're not actually a Christian? Or what other reasons do you think could be contributing to this drop in the rate of Christianity?
It's a narrow path. Never meant to be. Well, God's intent was for everyone to walk it, but the reality was there would be thousands walking it and tens of thousands walking the broad path. I am not surprised. It's a short answer. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there has been a lot of damage done under the name of Christianity over the years, not just right now, but over the years. And I guess there's been a lot of damage done under the name of Islam and other stuff as well. But it's interesting that people are a lot more critical of Christianity than of other religions. Um,
I
I
think
guess
that's
it's hard.
because other religions are like protected in a way that
I was,
Christianity isn't.
I was about to say as well, it's hard to be critical of a man who may have a bomb strapped to his chest.
And that's racist.
It's not racism. I didn't say it's not racism. I didn't say an ethnicity. I
You
didn't
knew
say
what
a
you were
race.
talking about.
I didn't say a race. So it's not racism. It's discriminatory, but it's not racism. That was a joke, by the way, for the listeners.
Oh, and for those who don't know, Moses used to be Muslim, so he's allowed to make that joke.
That's like saying I've got black friends, so I'm allowed to
Yeah.
make racist jokes.
um, yeah. So I think. So I'm starting to hear the rhetoric a lot around is Christianity for the black person. Christianity is like the slave man's religion, and this isn't new. This isn't new. It's been circulating for a while. But I in the circles that I am in, I'm starting to hear a lot more people trying to either bring arguments for or against, justifying reasons why it is, why it isn't. And with the whole woke movement in trying to shed light and let's go back to our roots and whatever, let's go back to African spirituality and stuff. I think people are starting to poke at a perceived weakness a bit more openly, which is so I think I may be wrong, but that's my assumption based on interactions and my exposure to what's happening. Peter looks very pensive.
It's trying to reconcile a couple of things. So, on the one hand, the world hated Christ. Like, I can't look at this any other way than spiritually. I can't think of a political reason or a socio-economic reason as to why the numbers are going down. I can only look at it from a spiritual perspective. And I'm not saying that to say that I'm correct. I'm saying that to say that's the only way I can frame I can have a framework to think about this. And the world hated Christ. The world hated Christ with no other reason than he came to point out, well, he didn't come to point out, but in his fulfilling the law, he points out our need for him. And the world's not going to like that. The world's not going to like someone, a rapper said, you know, the gospel is offensive because it deals with our offenses. I think that's a nice way of putting it, but that's the truth. That's the truth. And so I am not surprised that in the world that we're in, which is a much smaller world, because of technology, because of social media, because of our access to information and to hearing other people's voices, that more light is being shined on the truth of the gospel, what it really means, and there being more voices to be able to talk against that, and more people being swayed by the prince of the power of the air, which is the devil. So I'm really not surprised that more and more people are not saying that they're Christian. This is the end times, you know. You know, there are many that will deny him. There are many that will turn away from him. Even amongst those that are in church, many that will fall away. Many that the enemy will be able to grab. So, you know, I'm just not surprised. And as I said, thousands. I can't remember the verse, but thousands on the narrow path, tens of thousands on the broad path. You know, we're in a world now that caters so much to your sort of personal preferences and dude, truth in and of itself now is no longer objective. Like, there's no truth. You can say we're talking about the truth, and literally someone will ask you, well, whose truth?
It's not my truth. Yeah,
Exactly. Like, if you can have your own truth, then of what use is Christ to you? You know, then you're losing something by going to the truth.
yeah.
So
You're having to submit to yourself to a higher authority, and you lose that autonomy and that freedom to be able to say XY chromosomes was meant to be YY or XX chromosomes, but we're not going to get into that.
And in a society that's all about you, everything is about you being satisfied. Everything. That's what adverts are about. That's what anything that's trying to sell to you. Sex is used because it's about you gaining the pleasure. Everything is about
Come on.
you being satisfied. How will that world turn to God? And I think that the wildest statement I've heard was David Cameron saying this is very much a Christian nation. Like, no, it's not. It really isn't. Not in law, not in any way is this a Christian nation. And so in very much a such a mixing pot of so many different cultures and opinions and tolerances and inclusivity of all opinions and thoughts. I'm not surprised that many are turned away. And I think, not to say that it's a good thing at all, but I think it's indicative of maybe the fact that there is more knowledge of what the truth is, and thus more rejection of it. I can't say that authoritatively because I don't know the numbers, but I definitely know that in as much as there are lots of stupid people out there talking about saying they're Christian, people that want to recontextualize the Bible and say that it doesn't condemn homosexuality, or that it's fine with you deciding that God created you but he made a mistake and thus you are not a man or a woman. I think there's also people and access to people that are speaking the truth. There are access to, dope rappers that are speaking the truth. Bizzle's Bamboozled is on Spotify. Tons of people are going to be hearing that. Now, I'm not saying that's responsible for the census here, but I'm saying there is access to the truth, and thus I'm not surprised that there is increased rejection of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really like this conversation, and I agree with the spiritual element. Like the cross is an offense to the Gentiles and food. No, it's an offense to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
And so that there is an element of, unless drawn, it will be nonsense to you unless God is able to kind of give you these. Yeah, but we're getting into a doctrine that might not be helpful at the moment.
Is God turning people away?
Not like that. They're not the elect.
Yeah.
But I also see the balance between the the parallels between the supernatural and the natural in I see the parallel in that sometimes. So when Jesus is like, is it Jesus or no? It's John. It's John. Raw man's about to say John. Yeah. If you pray for your is it John though? It might
Maybe
be
say
John.
the quote.
But
Let's
yeah.
see if we even know, because we might not.
If you have the means to support your brother, don't just say I'll pray for you. Go do what you're doing. But if you've got clothes, if you've got money, if you've got food, like actually help him out.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
I was going to say I thought it was Paul as well. That sounds like Paul.
That sounds like Paul.
It's somewhere in the Bible.
In the Bible, that's it. In the New Testament, easily.
Yeah, it's in the New Testament. In the letter somewhere. Yeah. And this support being a practical thing as well as a spiritual thing. And so even the proper the spreading of the gospel has a spiritual element and it has a physical element. Absolutely. And so it kind of goes hand in hand. And so even as the world will reject the gospel, it doesn't help if them are being wastemen with it. Like it doesn't help. But it doesn't negate that the world will reject the gospel. You can't do a madness and say, see, they're not even for Jesus, because that's like, no, you are spending the collection money and they found out and now they're like, what are you doing? And now you're trying to say they're not about Jesus. No, it's your fault. So yeah, just seeing that balance between just the natural and the supernatural and how they tend to go hand in hand.
Yeah. I think 3 ideas that come to mind for me. I think it's 3. It was 3. I don't know if I've got all 3 still. The first one, I think that we are, especially more compared to 10 years ago, we live in a society where labels and labeling have become very important. And not only that, not only have labels become important, the variety of different labels has increased a lot.
Mm.
And I think before people would just say they're Christian because maybe they were raised a Christian, they went to church twice a year on Easter, Christmas, and they're British, so oh, I'm Christian by default,
Disrespect.
you know. But now we're living in a time where you can identify as whatever you want, you can label yourself as whatever you want, and so maybe Christian isn't the label that fits you best, you know. The second point that's related to this is that over the past 10 years there seems has been an explosion in so many types of spirituality becoming more mainstream. So you can go and howl with the wolves, you can go and dance with
The
the
Howard
in the
rules.
woods and all of that. Um,
Facts.
Being agnostic is is a very much a real, almost like a religion at this point for people. Like people will be putting more stock in their star signs than they will in anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew he was a Gemini. Typical Aries.
Bro.
Yeah.
So I think exposure to so many different wicked things, and yeah, there's that and labeling. I think those are two big worldly things that are happening, and I think the third, Christianity has allowed itself to be diluted, and it's interesting in the sense that Christianity dilutes in the sense that it's almost become too inclusive. And I think it's interesting how in trying to become more inclusive, more people are leaving. But then with
Mm.
religions like Islam and Judaism, who probably have like more harder stances on stuff than Christianity do, you're seeing their numbers rise. So like it's almost like people are gravitating towards like the firm foundation as opposed to the wishy-washiness of what Christianity has become.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and
I
I
wonder
don't.
about that though. I wonder. Well, no, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong in that. I think lots of people that would claim to be Christian end up diluting it and making it, sound crazy. You don't see as many people doing that with the Quran or with the, with the Torah, but definitely Christian. You see a lot of people try and then interpret it through their own understanding, and that's a lot more tolerated, at the very least, than other religions. But I wonder if that's causing people to move away, um, because that almost sounds like it should be bringing more people in, even if they're not actually Christian, because they're coming in with false understandings.
You know what? If it feels like that people are drawn to things that they can find security in. So like if your religion is taking strong stances on stuff, you're like, okay, I can be secure in this because they know what they stand for and they're ready to stand for it. If with Christianity, it almost feels like sometimes you can't trust it, or not Christianity itself, but the Christians. You can't trust Christians because they'll have a stance. It's almost like Peter when he would eat with the Jews. No, he would eat with the Gentiles when
When the
when the
Jews
Jews weren't
came.
around. But then when the Jews came, it was another way. And it's like you can't really be secure in that kind of person because you don't know what way they're gonna turn.
Facts.
Unless you hear Paul's letter or you hear Paul's rebuke of that person, and then you see that there is a truth to it. Which is why, maybe there's also, the takedown YouTube,
Yeah,
the takedown
but not
Christian
in,
YouTube.
But then I feel like not everyone's gonna hear or Paul or
fair enough.
living in the times that we do. Paul's message probably wouldn't be able to be preached the way it was without him getting cancelled.
I don't think Paul would worry about being cancelled. I don't think we should
He
worry
wouldn't.
about being cancelled.
He wouldn't. But then people wouldn't listen. But then it'll be hard for the message to get put across.
I don't think so. I think the same way, I think the issues that he faced would be the same. There will be those that hate him. There will be those that want to debate him. There will be those that saying he's a heretic. There will be those that saying he's too harsh or whatever. But I don't think his response would be any different if it was today, and he was getting those same comments on his videos, or he was getting those same reactions in public and people protesting. I don't think his reaction would be the same. I don't. It would be different. Sorry, I think it would be the same.
Definitely, but I think today people are more like empowered in the attack against him, even if their arguments wouldn't hold weight, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
but that was the same man.
Bro, more empowered than stoning him.
This is what I was gonna say. They were ready to kill him.
More empowered
They actually
than beating man up.
Yeah.
And like dragging him into the thing. Bro,
Yeah.
they flogged him. These man will cancel your social media.
No. But that's the thing. Back then, if people didn't like what you were saying, they'll do something about it. Today, they'll go on Twitter and complain.
Yeah. I think if he can take people doing something about it, he can handle people complaining.
No.
I prefer that.
But I think that with the fear of like being stoned, there's like a finality and an intentionality about that. And like you can't stone someone unless you're proper convicted to go and stone the person.
Yeah.
Today, you don't have to half believe what you're saying to argue against or for something.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
So, a follow-up question. So, Christianity is dropping, right? Well, there's been a net drop, shall we say. So, what does this net drop say about Christians, at least in UK's efforts when it comes to evangelizing?
That's a good question. I was gonna say as well. Peter mentioned something that I just want to pick up on, even in this question, where maybe you, whoever. I'm doing this a lot today. Whoever says something around professing a faith just because, I was raised in a Catholic church, I'm Catholic or whatever. I'm Anglican because that's why I got confirmed. Like I'm Anglican. But people are starting to interrogate and are starting to hold their identities a lot more close to their chest. Like they want an identity that they think actually reflects them and not just something that was handed down.
Which is a good thing, I think.
Which is a good thing. And so
because I think that leads to, even though Christianity is decreasing in the UK, it means that it's almost like the ones that are left are quote unquote real Christians.
And what I was gonna say is almost it could be a case of the people who are saying I'm Christian, this is just speculation, may have just been Christian by name and not actually by conviction, simply because it's part of their routine, it's part of their upbringing. But they're not actually about that life. There may be an element of that. And so even with the decrease, it may be more of a truer reflection. I'm also reminded of the language around there being a remnant. So even with people like leaving the faith and not following God and stuff, God is still retaining a remnant. People who haven't bowed their knee to the foreign gods and given up their faith and stuff. So what we may be seeing is more so the remnant of faith within the UK. And even if that is the case, I know that through the Bible, God has always done a madness with the remnant. it's almost like when we look through the biblical narrative, it's almost like God actually wants the smaller camp. He wants to almost be seen to be the underdog, so that when he does his thing, it's a madness. Everyone's like, yo, because like he's seemingly the underdog. Even by taking the nation of Israel, it was the smallest nation. And then he had Elijah, one man versus all of Baal's prophets. Jesus, man only got 12 disciples. And then Paul went and did a madness. Like it's always the underdogs. It's now that I say now loosely, but this notion of celebrity endorsements and stuff like that, we need the numbers, we need the faces, we need the this, we need the that. We don't. God takes the foolishness of man to confound the wise. Like his stuff is not the way God works. Is not the way that it's not. Yeah, it's not the way that we anticipate or we think. Or oh yeah, man's got God figured out. Yeah, I heard someone say, if you think you've got God figured out, then that means you're God.
Mm-hmm. If you can figure out God, I don't know if that's a God I'd want to follow.
You know, like that.
I think it definitely should also give the church more urgency
Yes.
in wanting to spread the
Yes.
gospel, because if we are actually thinking about this in a sense of we're talking your eternal life or your eternal death, we should be a lot more fired up about it. We should be a lot more fired about speaking the truth, wanting to give people every opportunity to not be in hell. Like, if you knew that, you know, you maybe just on a personal level, if you worked in KFC and you knew that the chicken was dragged on the floor before it was fried, you won't eat it and you won't let anyone you know eat it. Like, unless, I don't know, maybe
You would hope.
yeah, I know. I can see Robert if I annoy him one day. Like, yeah,
Bro,
let me take you KFC. Let me get you a discount.
bro, he will come. Hey, here's a mighty bucket for you, fam.
But
I'm not
if
picking myself.
if we truly believe what we're talking about and we understand that this is eternity, then seeing those numbers should make us go like, yo, we need to move. And that doesn't mean that those numbers will go up. It does mean that we need to speak on and get the word out a lot more.
Going back to my question,
Mm.
does do you think that this decrease speaks to the quality of gospel that Christians have been preaching?
No, because and that's where I think, you know, there's lots of reasons why, and I've shedded some. I've spoken as to my thoughts on some of the reasons, being spiritual, being actually there is access to truth, and thus I'm not surprised that there is rejection of it. You know, in the last days, the darkness shall increase, but you know, when darkness increases, the light shines brighter as well. So I don't think that's indicative of a failure, if that makes sense. I don't think that's indicative of a failure of the gospel getting out. But I think it should cause for us to want to get the gospel out more. Even if that means that number goes down. Maybe we start weeding out those in the church that aren't Christian. Because,
Hey,
no, I'm not going to change the gospel to suit your woke ideals, you know. But it definitely, at least me, makes me think we need to be doing more. And that doesn't always mean I'm going to go stand on the street and say you're going to hell. But it does mean I'm thinking more about my skill set and how I can use it to propagate the gospel. You know, my job isn't to get people saved. My job is to contextualize the word such that they can be, or at least they can hear it. The seeds are sown. And as Mo mentioned as well, you know, how can they come unless they're drawn? So, in as much as we're also doing the whole, how are we contextualizing the gospel, we're also praying for souls. We're praying for people. We're praying for the Spirit to be doing the work in people to bring them to him, to salvation. So yeah, I don't think it's indicative of a failure, but I think it should light a fire under the church to get the word out. Because you're seeing, okay, everyone that's the more than half the population in the UK by that census, in effect, is going to hell. You know, if I'm to say, no, these guys definitely don't believe in Christ as their Lord and as Savior of their lives and Lord of their lives, then effectively what we're saying is that more than half of the UK is going to hell. That should worry us a little bit.
Uh,
Facts.
I'm sure the Jehovah's Witnesses are happy about this because it means that they got more
There's
chance
more
of
room
being
in
part of the
there.
144,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
God. So Moses, what do you think is one thing you could do to help
Yeah,
with the fight?
Moses.
What do I think is one thing that I could do?
Yeah.
Am I Jesus? No, but on the real, I always take comfort from the reality that even Jesus couldn't convert everyone.
Yo.
I don't know if that's fully true. I
I
think
mean, there was one guy on the cross that was gonna be with him in paradise. There's another guy on the cross that was like, "He's
no,
with
no,
us.
but
He's the
no,
same."
no, but
Bro,
This is why your Wi-Fi's cutting out because you're chatting
I
your
mean,
nonsense.
like,
wife is
I don't
still.
think of everyone.
Yo, what? Start again, please. Start again. Your
The
wife.
Lord
Oh, no,
is literally stopping you from saying nonsense.
I was saying that Jesus didn't not have the ability
He
to
he
convert
didn't have
everyone.
the he didn't not have the ability,
It didn't force anyone.
but he didn't convert everyone.
Yeah.
It was not to convert everyone. He
He
could have if
didn't.
he wanted to.
Then that wouldn't have been free will.
We're going into the sovereignty
Yeah, that wouldn't have been free will.
election. Yeah.
It's a case. Even in John 17 when he was praying, he was like, I don't pray for the entire world, but those who will believe through their preaching. And this language around, for me, I'm not saying that in terms of like Jesus was unable, but like Jesus is the greatest example of everything we're trying to achieve. He is the example. He is the model that we're
We're
going on.
servants. We can't be greater than the
Yes,
master.
Oh, but he just
we're
said
trying to
that
be
that
like
would do
Jesus.
greater things than he did.
Do not be greater.
We're not. Yes, we're not going like. But in all of my efforts, I will not convert every single person I meet. Even if I'm to commit myself 100% to every conversation, it's not going to happen.
Maybe you need faith the size of a mustard seed, Moses.
I do.
Yeah.
And the reality is not going to happen. But that doesn't negate me putting my all into every conversation, but also recognizing the scope of influence that God has given me. So first and foremost, it's my kids, the household, investing into them. And so for me, it's very much just like, yo, like, and I think as Peter mentioned initially, being open and attuned to the Holy Spirit. I don't think kingdom work is explicitly evangelizing. I don't think kingdom work is explicitly hitting someone over the head with the Bible. I think kingdom work is being available to be used by his Holy Spirit at any point in time. And so kingdom work is 24/7. Whether you eat or sleep, do everything to the glory of God. I believe that's kingdom work. So it's being available. It's being available at every moment consistently to be like, all right, cool, God. Like, I don't necessarily have to be saying at every moment, how do you want to use me? But just being available to being used at every, and that's what I think it is. And I guess like for those who would want actionable stuff, I can't give you any at the moment. And that's fine.
I think I definitely say it's using your skill set, whatever your skill set is, to do what God wants you to do with it. I've said this before, and I think I've got a poem about it, that you are the only Bible that some people would read. So you better be a good ambassador, you better be a good representative of the Christ, of the righteousness that you are now a slave to, having been bought. You
In
better
other
be a good
words,
witness.
don't be the message version. Be the be the NLT at least.
So there's that, and as Mo said, it's not everyday evangelism for everyone, but in your interactions, you're carrying the presence of God. People
Facts.
better know it at least. How can the presence of God be in a place and people just be like, oh, that's just one of us? Like, nah, you have to, and that won't come from you performing these things. That will come from you being and your growth in the spirit. So there's that, and yeah, as I said, using your skill set. I'm not the greatest apologist, and I'm not the most friendly person. I'm antisocial. I don't want to talk to strangers. So sort of street style evangelism just won't work for me. Not even won't work for me. That's not what God has designed me to do. It's fitting a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work. But I like sitting behind a computer all day and sort of doing stuff on websites. So I'll use that skill set to help get the message of the church on the internet where lots of people can find it. And so I think it's serving and being open to serve in whatever capacity you can in your church to help with the propagation of the gospel. That's what you can do, in addition to being a good witness of Christ yourself in your day-to-day activities. Definitely.
How about you, Robert?
I think for me, one, just being open to God, saying, God, how can you use me? I'm ready.
How can
I'm
I
willing.
use you
How can I
today?
use you? This blasphemous guy.
Oh,
What praise
don't
can
say
you
the
answer for
quiet
me
parts
today?
out loud, boy. No, I'm just be willing and ready to be used by God. And I think for me personally, I think just being, well, one thing I could do is just being more intentional about checking in on people, seeing how their walk's going. Like, oh,
Okay.
how what's actually written in the Bible? Which thoughts about on this, on that? Just have conversations, but maybe a bit more intentional, just to see where people are at. Because I know, like, even from having conversations in the past, that's how, like, red flags have come up, and then you can address those. But because it's come up in the conversation, you can do it in a way that doesn't seem like confrontational, as if you, right, if you, as opposed to if you just like brought up out of nowhere saying you're being a pagan, kind of conversation. Oh, what have we tried doing it this way? Have you thought about this? What does the Bible say about this? And then at least it gives them something to think about after we leave the conversation, hopefully. Um, one will do the planting, one will do the watering, but God will bring the increase.
Amen.
Cool. Let's end there.
Very elegant way of ending.
Yeah. Well, I'm thirsty. I could do for beverage.
As am I. I'm gonna drink some water. But yeah.
No, finish recording first. Be a professional for once in your life, PR.
Mad.
Damn.
Man said for once in your
Man
life.
came for me straight.
Hookups. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. My exhibition. You see it. Waves come on the 12th of December in Kingston at a place called Not My Beautiful House, right next to the Kingston station, and that come through from 6 till 9. I'll drop the postcode when I remember it. I just did a Google search. It is KT1 1JS. Not My Beautiful House. It's in the ancient market. Yeah, so 6 till 9. Catch me there. Catch me there.
See.
Cool. Peter Patron.
My hookup is gonna be an app called Notion. I've started trying to use Notion with church. I use Notion a lot. Notion has replaced Evernote and a bunch of productivity things for me. Just because you asked about productivity earlier, I suggest Notion for building a system and building like a note taking system, a project management system, a time management system for yourself. So check it out. It's a really, really powerful tool that will help you get organized and get productive and manage your time better.
Cool. My hookup is a game. It's called Poetry for Neanderthals.
What?
Poetry for Neanderthals. It's a really good game, actually. So, if you ever played Articulate, it's like Articulate with a twist. If you haven't played Articulate, basically, it's like a team game. One person on the team is trying to describe something to the other people on the team in hopes that they'll guess what it is they're describing. The catch is with Poetry for Neanderthals, the person describing can only use words that have one syllable in them.
Oh, okay.
And so it makes it a bit harder. Yeah, it's a fun little game. Gets your brain thinking. I've got the not safe for work version. I think it's a bit too not safe for work, so I might have to get the vanilla version to go along with it.
That's mad.
Of course.
And the thing is, it wasn't even too bad, but people just don't be knowing some of these things. I'm like, you didn't know what a jockstrap was? Like, come on, everyone knows what a jockstrap is. Well, I guess you have to know your audience.
I only know it because of sports, though.
Exactly, that's what it is.
It's a sporting thing, bro. I like it.
That's just because Robert sounded like,
Like your peanuts.
Robert sounded like this was for the not safe for work one, so I'm like,
Oh, well, that was one of them. Like another one was like nipple tassels, So there's a spectrum.
Look at Peter's face.
I don't know how you describe that, but cool.
Oh, actually, yeah. Try and try now, Peter. Try and describe nipple tassels using only one syllable words.
Sorry, I just keep thinking boop beep boop beep.
Hang, swing,
Hank.
yeah, hangs down, isn't it? Right.
Boop beep.
I guess you could say put on breasts.
Oh, okay. It can be a sentence. But
Yeah, you can say
okay.
but it has to be.
Okay.
Yeah, so put on breasts, swirl them round and round. I mean, you might be able to guess that. We should play sometime.
I just thought it has to be just words, like not.
No. It can be sentences, but you can only use words that have got one syllable.
Okay.
Sticks on tits.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, we should definitely play this sometime. I think it'll be fun.
Swings round.
Wow, we can make this whole podcast episode, to be honest.
That is a Neanderthal-like behavior.
Hey, I like this one.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Let's round up.
Feel free to edit it out, bro.
No, keep it in. What men? Men talk about what men go and talk about. It's part
I
of
wonder
being
if
open with each
anyone's
other.
watching this live and they're just like, yo.
No one's watching. No one's watching now, thankfully. But yeah.
All right. Shout out to the intro outro music.
I'm
Calvin Turner for the ordinary amazing logo.
I'm on.
Find us on Twitter at FrenchUK, Instagram at TBS Furnace. You can email us at tbsfurnace@hotmail.com. You can find us at soundcloud.com/the Blacksmith Furnace no apostrophe. On all good podcast websites and apps, the Blacksmith Furnace with an apostrophe. And that's it. So this is the Blacksmith Furnace signing out. Blow.
The Dorkin.